From the studios of Staten Island Community Television, you're watching In the Bleachers, the TV show for the world's most passionate sports fans. Hello, everyone. I'm Jaime Hixson. Usually you see me here talking to my friend Hector Boza over the phone, but Hector is actually in recovery from illness right now, so hopefully he'll be able to join us next week. But we have the next best thing. We have a very, very, very special guest over the phone, and it happens to be the radio voice of the New York Islanders. It's Chris King who joins us. Hello, Chris. How are you?
I'm doing great, Jamie, and I hope Hector's doing better very soon.
We certainly hope that he's doing better as well. Has it set in yet that the players no longer have a season to take care of?
I mean, obviously, there's that, that bitter end of losing Game 7, 1-0 on a shorthanded goal, absolutely. And I'm sure this thing is still there for the players, to get that close to their first Stanley Cup final since 1984 and to be a goal away. And, to have it lose to the same team now twice in a row in the same round in the Tampa Bay Lightning, who are off to, a great start in the finals. So I'm sure, it takes a while for the pain to go away for the players, which I know will linger with them for a long, long time. But there certainly is that sense that, it's over when, they get on that plane to come home from Tampa. And, a couple of nights later, in that same building, the Lightning are hosting the Canadiens in Game 1 of the Stanley Cup final.
What do you think Barry Trotz is saying to his players in that locker room just moments after what had to be such a heartbreaking loss?
Yeah, I think, Jamie, he's telling them to be proud of what they accomplished. A lot of people certainly didn't think they would get this far, 2 seasons ago in the bubble, which they did, and then to get it, one step further, to get to a Game 7 when they had previously lost to Tampa in Game 6 in the conference finals the year before. So, certainly be proud of what you accomplished. They beat all odds. They were underdogs. They were the 4th seed in their division in the playoffs when everything began, and they knocked off the 2 teams in the division ahead of them and gave Tampa everything that they could possibly handle in that, the semifinal set. So, nothing to hang your head about. And, again, to have that Game 7 be so close, just a 1-goal game with a shorthanded goal being the only difference between, the Islanders playing right now or sitting home. So I don't think there's anything to hang their heads over. Obviously, the future is very bright for this team, and, they proved how well they could play with Tampa, despite the fact they didn't have, one of their best players in Captain Anders Lee, who's been out, since mid-March.
I'm curious to know, it's 2 straight years that they've lost to the Lightning in the conference finals, or in this case, the Stanley Cup semifinals. Should the Islanders try and build strictly to beat the Lightning, or should they try and build to beat, in this case, the Eastern Division?
Yeah, I don't think you can really construct your team, Jamie, in that manner because you never know what you're going to face, and you don't know who the team is that, may be standing between you and the Stanley Cup a year from now. If, you go back to the start of these playoffs, there were teams that everyone expected to be in that final. Many people thought Edmonton, who went out quickly. Many people thought Colorado, who, stormed out to a 6-0 start and weren't around when it got to this round either. So I don't think you ever do that. I think you just try to, construct as balanced a team as you can and, try to find those weaknesses. And for the Islanders, goal scoring became a bit of a problem, not so much in the first 2 rounds. They were actually the highest scoring team in the NHL playoffs through 2 rounds, but they ran into a terrific defense and a great goaltender that the Tampa Bay Lightning have and really could use some more goal scoring, as every team could. But, I mentioned Anders Lee being out. He's a former 40-goal scorer who had led them in goals 3 times, so that was a big blow. But I think, they realize that their game is defense, and that's where they're strongest, obviously, with the blue liners they have and the goaltenders they do. But up front, perhaps try to find a way to add some scoring, which, again, they won't be alone in trying to do that. But I think that's the one area that certainly, that they will target as an area that could have cost them in the end, especially when you lose by just 1 goal.
We mentioned Barry Trotz, and ever since he took over the bench for the Islanders, he has made them look so dangerous and so exciting to watch on the ice. What does he bring to the bench that, say, the previous guy was not able to?
Yeah, well, a couple of things, Jamie. I think, first of all, he arrives with a Stanley Cup. You have to remember when he was hired, he had just won the first Stanley Cup in Washington Capitals history, and they have been trying to do that for 44 years. So he wins the Cup Immediately 2 weeks later, he's signed as the Islander head coach. So right away he comes with that credibility of what he did in Nashville, for 15 years there with a Predators team that was an expansion team when they started, and obviously led them, to great respectability and some, moderate success in the playoffs. Then he goes into Washington, where they had perennially underachieved in the playoffs. They struggled first couple of years there in the postseason, too, getting knocked off in back-to-back years by the Penguins before finding a way to win that cup. And the biggest thing he brought, honestly, was just a commitment to defense. In the final year before Barry arrived, Doug Waite was the head coach, and the Islanders gave up the most goals against in the National Hockey League. The following year, Barry's behind the bench. They bring back essentially the same roster, and he then gives up the fewest goals against in the National Hockey League. So it just shows you what his defensive system can do. He cut 100 goals off their goals against in his first year, and that's something that hadn't happened in 100 years in the NHL, and he won Coach of the Year that first year for doing just that. So I think the two things, the combination of respect that he arrived with and the defensive system that completely turned the fortunes of the Islanders around, are the two biggest things that, Barry brought into his year one as Islander head coach.
You mentioned the defense that Tampa played against the Isles in that series. I remember when Kyle Palmieri, who got traded there by the Devils, he wound up being the team's leading scorer, but all of a sudden he was not heard from in the Tampa series. What did the Lightning do to try and shut him down?
And it wasn't just him, Jamie. It was actually, if you look at it, it's kind of interesting how it played out. The only 4 Islanders who didn't have any points in that Tampa series were all basically on the same line. It was J.G. Pajot's third line with Pajot in the middle. He didn't have any points. Palmieri on the left. He didn't have any points. Zajac on the right. He didn't have any points. And Komarov, he played a little bit on the left, and he didn't have any points in that series either. So literally they were the only 4 forwards who had 0 points in the Lightning series. And, credit to Tampa for doing that. We learned subsequently that J.G. Pajot was playing with a very banged-up hand that required surgery the minute the season ended. So that was, to me, a big part of that line's inability to put up any points at all. When you're talking about Pajot, he was the guy that, led the Islanders in assists, led the Islanders in points through 2 rounds. He was their best player in the playoffs, and then just wasn't himself because of that hand injury that happened early in the series against Tampa. So, credit to the Lightning defense. They have a great defense that I think is very, very underrated, led by Victor Hedman, who's a perennial Norris Trophy candidate, and he's won that award once. And the same thing in goal, and Andrei Vasilevsky, who's won the Vezina and was up for that again this year as well, a finalist for that award. So, they did it to the Islanders. They're doing it to Montreal now, too. And, they're in pretty good shape. They're not home yet with the lead early in the series, but, they're looking like they could be the first back-to-back Stanley Cup champion since the Penguins did it in 2016 and 2017.
What do you think it's going to take to keep the team together?
Yeah, that's a great question, too, Jamie, because as I mentioned in the same thing with the Lightning are going to deal with, every year you go through this thing where, well, first of all, you expect that the salary cap will increase, and because of the pandemic, it was flat last year. It's going to be flat again this year, and that makes it so difficult just to bring back the guys that you currently have. So the Islanders have, certain players who are restricted free agents. They will kind of be the top priority as you see little movement there. They have very important players who are unrestricted free agents and who are going to want to test the waters. And then, you have other players that you'd like to bring in, but that cap situation is going to handcuff you. And the best example I can give is a year ago, the Islanders had no intention of ever trading Devon Taves, a great young defenseman, but had no choice to get everybody else they wanted to get under the salary cap. They had to trade him to Colorado, and that really hurt. So they lost a great player in Devon Taves because of that cap. And this year they're going to lose another really good player because of the Seattle Kraken, picking one off their roster in that expansion draft. So it's not going to be easy to bring the same team back. And again, because of the flat cap and the combination of restricted and unrestricted free agency and the expansion draft, Barry Trotz even said it in the postgame of Game 7. He said, look, this is not going to be the same team come September that just wrapped up here in late June, and that's just the reality of the cap-strapped NHL these days.
I cannot do this interview any justice without asking about the Islander fans. Plain and simple, the fans were outstanding the majority of this season. But how instrumental were they in the run to the Stanley Cup semifinals?
I think they were huge, Jamie. And, Lou Lamoriello, the president and GM, came out and said, look, we couldn't have done it without them. They were our seventh man. And it's amazing, Jamie, like how far it came. If you think back to the beginning of this season, I think it was the first 13 home games had no fans in the building at all. And then they welcomed back, 1,000 first responders night one, and it just kind of built and built and built. And, by the time you got to the Tampa series, they were putting 13,000 in the Great Barn of a building that holds 14, so they were nearly packing it full. But I just think about how good they were at home in the regular season, where they were absolutely, one of the best teams in the entire league, only losing 4 games in regulation on home ice all year in the regular season. And in the postseason, you just got to go through the clinchers. The Game 6 clincher against the Penguins, I thought, was, another level of loud for the Coliseum. They topped that in the Game 6 clincher against the Boston Bruins because there were more fans in the building. And then if you think about, the way the last 2 home games played out, they had moments at the end of those games that will be remembered forever. I mean, the Game 4 against Tampa where Ryan Pulock makes the save in the crease at the buzzer to save the win, iconic moment right now in Islander history. And then Anthony Beauvillier in Game 6, winning it in overtime and sending that building into delirium. Islanders, of course, at the time didn't know it. It was their last playoff game ever in the building. We now know it was, but the fans were a big reason why that, they had to push all the way to the semifinals and, got to Game 7 this year, which they couldn't do last year, losing in Game 6 in the bubble in Edmonton. So lots of credit to the fans, and it was just an emotional scene every night, Jamie, where, the nostalgia of people realizing for them it might have been their last time ever going to this great building that the team has called home for nearly 50 years now, because everyone knows it's going 8 miles down the turnpike to UBS Arena in Elmont at Belmont Park next year. So, yeah, kudos to the fans for making it, in my mind, by far the loudest and most passionate building in the entire National Hockey League.
Do you think the fans are going to miss the old barn, or are they going to be looking forward to the new arena, which is UBS Arena, for next season?
A little of both, because, you can't match what's happened at Nassau Coliseum in the history of this team. All the great moments, the 4 Stanley Cups they won, 3 of them were on home ice, so they got to skate the Cup 3 times at the Coliseum, and the memories are there forever. But, all those banners are certainly going to move down Hempstead Turnpike, so you're going to get that feel, and kudos to the owners of the New York Islanders, because they, not only vowed to bring everything great about the Coliseum into the new building, but they visited every NHL arena, every NBA arena, most football and baseball stadiums too, just to try to take all the best ideas they could from everybody else's home, no matter what the sport was, and put that into UBS Arena at Belmont Park. So, I've had a chance to tour it. It's spectacular. I can't wait to do it again now that it's a little closer to completion. But I think, come November, the fans are going to say, you know what, we needed a new building, but this one brings the aura and all the passion that the fans brought to the old building to the new one, but with obviously a lot, more upgraded and modern amenities.
To wrap up, you're already having a very busy summer because not only are you the voice of the Islanders, you're also the voice of the Long Island Ducks, which is the independent baseball team that's on Long Island.
Yeah, it's so much fun, Jamie. I absolutely love both because they're so different. Hockey, my pace is go, 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 go. And baseball, it's kind of lay back and get in the old rocking chair and watch the pitches come in. So I do love them both. And for the Ducks, it's a very, very special summer because they lost all of last year to the pandemic. And we had won the 2019 Atlantic League Championship, so we were the defending champions and couldn't play a single game in the summer of 2020 and actually had 600 days off between games before they finally resumed this year. So they got a big battle for first place this weekend with Southern Maryland in the North Division for July 4th weekend, where we should get, some of those huge crowds we're used to getting on a normal basis back for the first time with fireworks and the holiday weekend. And we're bringing in some big former major leaguers that are going to play with us for a week here before they get ready to go to the Olympics in Tokyo. So it's a great time to be the radio voice of the Long Island Ducks as well.
Speaking of former major leaguers, are there any former major leaguers on Long Island that the fans might recognize?
Yeah, probably the biggest name we still have is Lou Ford, who, obviously had a ton of time in the big leagues with the Minnesota Twins and also, was with the Ducks and got back to the Baltimore Orioles. But as I mentioned, this week alone, we're bringing in Ian Kinsler and Danny Valencia, who, both have extensive time in the major leagues, and they're going to play for Team Israel in the Tokyo Olympics upcoming. So they wanted to come here and, play the highest level of minor league baseball they could to get ready for that, and they're going to spend the next week as Long Island Ducks. So it's going to be a thrill to get to meet them, as I will later today at a big press conference we're having at the Duck Pond.
Well, Chris, we know that you're pressed for time, but we certainly appreciate you taking time out to speak to us. Thank you so very much for this interview. It's been greatly appreciated, and we hope that you continue to have a fabulous summer, and hopefully we'll see a Stanley Cup on Long Island next year in the new building.
Oh, thanks so much, Jamie. That would be an incredible way to celebrate what's going to be the 50th year in the National Hockey League for the New York Islanders. So it is a big year coming up with that big anniversary and a brand new building. And again, I thank you for having me, and all the best to Hector, too. Again, I hope he is back soon.
And all the best to Hector, of course. Very greatly appreciated. Be well, okay?
Okay, take care, Jamie.
You too. Well, that was certainly a brush with fame for me. Once again, special thanks to Chris King for really taking time out of what is a very busy schedule for him. He actually had to not only take care of his Long Island Ducks responsibilities, but apparently he's got some kind of family gathering that's taking place over the weekend for 4th of July. So we really appreciate him taking place with us here on In the Bleachers. By the way, I guess I should let you know, this is the second or the first of 2 episodes that remain until that landmark 700th episode, which is going to be taking place in a couple of weeks. So we certainly hope that you could join us for that landmark moment, and we certainly hope that you could just have some fun with us and also tune in, of course. Now, while the Islanders are trying to build for a Stanley Cup down the road, both the Rangers and the Devils are trying to build just to make the playoffs, when you think about it. The Devils, of course, are building mostly through the draft. And the Rangers, they're also trying to build through the draft as well. I mean, it's not like things are all disastrous with both teams. They do have some really nice young players, but it's going to take more than just building through the draft. They're going to try and convince some high-priced free agents to make their way into the tri-state area to see if they can help the Rangers and the Devils try and build upon whatever success that they've had in the last year or two. Now, while hockey is about to make its end of the season, baseball is basically at its midway point of their season. So, we just had the Subway Series take place over the weekend. When you think about it, folks, the Yankees and the Mets are like that old Creedence Clearwater Revival song. I see a bad moon rising, because even in spite of the result that took place over the weekend, the Yankees and the Mets are not clear of their problems. The Yankees are unathletic. They can't score runs. They can't score runs because they can't hit. Their pitching has been victimized by the fact that they cannot score any runs. It's going to take a major trade to try and turn things around for them. Even with that, I don't even know if that's going to be able to turn them around. Last I checked, the Yankees were just a game over 500. So they were able to make a deal with the Arizona Diamondbacks just recently. They acquired the outfielder Tim LaCastro from the Diamondbacks for a Double-A pitcher. At least LaCastro can give them some athletic ability and some speed in the outfield. LaCastro could probably come off the bench and add a little pop. But there's still the issue of how the lineup is set up. There's been a lot of calls for Giancarlo Stanton to not be the designated hitter anymore and maybe take one of the corner outfield slots, which means Aaron Judge would probably move to center field, which means Luke Voigt could be the designated hitter, and then DJ LeMahieu could probably take first, and Gleyber Torres could move back to second, and maybe Tyler Wade could be the shortstop, and then Gio Urshela would be the third baseman. it's easier said than done, but something tells me that these guys are going to be looking at the same lineup as is for a while now. As far as the Mets are concerned, again, Jacob deGrom continues to be the best player, not just the best pitcher, not only on the Mets, but in the game. He wound up getting victimized by the Braves the other day, giving up 3 runs in the first inning. But then he was able to be his usual dominating self for another 6 innings. And it got to the point where his ERA actually bloated up to 1, if you can believe that. As far as the Mets are concerned, exactly what is it going to take for the Mets to try and hold on to first place in the East? For one, they've got to get better pitching aside from deGrom. And we don't even know if the guys that they have on the injured list are going to be able to come back this season. First is Noah Syndergaard. Noah Syndergaard, to be quite honest with you, I don't think he's going to be returning anytime soon. I mean, they're saying that he could make a possible August or September return. But to be honest with you, is it really even worth it? Especially considering that he wound up getting himself hurt during a minor league rehab assignment again. And then there's Carlos Carrasco, who was the secondary guy that was acquired in the Francisco Lindor trade. A torn hamstring is a lot different from a pulled hamstring. A torn hamstring could probably put you out for a whole season. And I'm not really sure if Carlos Carrasco want to try and make a comeback this year. At least the Mets have Taijuan Walker to lean on, because he's pitched really well for the majority of the season. Other than that, David Peterson looks like he should be sent down to Syracuse, because he has not pitched well at all this season. As far as anything else going on with the Mets, I looked at their injured list and I counted at least 17 players that were on the injured list. If I can for a minute, I'm going to raffle off the list of names that the Mets have on their injured list. Well, 17 guys, you get the idea. It's pointless to try and raffle off names. Now, as far as anything else going on in the world of sports, the NBA Finals is all set, and for the first time in almost 3 decades, the Phoenix Suns are going to be involved in the NBA Finals. And how about the series that Chris Paul had against his former team, the Clippers? It boggles the mind that he's still able to perform at age 36. I mean, he not only was he scoring, but he was setting up his jump shot well. He was setting up teammates well. He was providing leadership, not just on the floor, but in the locker room. It's amazing what he was able to do for this whole series. And as far as what's going on the local front, well, the Nets and Knicks are still trying to figure out how to make their way into a little bit further into the playoffs next season. I was sent a whole bunch of articles by Hector regarding what the Knicks should do and what the Knicks are rumored to do. You know, it says here that one of the guys that's being rumored as being part of a blockbuster trade, R.J. Barrett, he's playing for his home country of Canada. And just recently, he wound up having a nice game against Greece. So hopefully his experience in the international circuit can prompt him for next season. Another guy that's being at least considered for the national team is Emmanuel Quickly. He's being considered for the USA basketball select team, not to be confused with the USA team that is going to make it to the Olympics. Which reminds me, they have already picked the 12 guys that are going to be going to Tokyo for this summer's Olympics. I'm going to see if I can get you a list of guys that are going to make it to the team. For the record, Greg Popovich is going to be the head coach. And here's the roster as constituted. Bam Adebayo, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker, Kevin Durant, Jeremy Grant, Draymond Green, Drew Holiday, Zach LaVine, Damian Lillard, Kevin Love, Chris Middleton, and Jason Tatum. This is a really young team that they have here. And unfortunately, it's also not a very deep team. The tallest guys that they have are 6'9" and 6'10", but other than that, that's all they have. But on the bright side, this should be a team that should be able to compete for a gold medal. It's a very athletic squad with a lot of scorers, but like I said, it's not very tall on the front line. Now, as far as what else is going on in basketball, I mentioned before that there was a rumored trade involving let's see here. Here we are. Supposedly, there's trade rumors involving R.J. Barrett. It says that the Knicks are open to trading R.J. Barrett. And the rumor has it that Barrett might be used in a package deal for either Damian Lillard or Bradley Beal. Tell you what, R.J. Barrett played much better this season, but is he somebody that the Knicks really want to build around or build with for the future? I just don't know. You know what you're getting in Bradley Beal, and you know what you're getting in Damian Lillard. Damian Lillard is a world-class point guard who is a big shot maker, and his perimeter game knows no limit. Now, if the Trailblazers really were interested in talking turkey with the Knicks, it's going to take more than just R.J. Barrett. It might take some combination of Barrett and Emmanuel Quickly and maybe Obi Toppin to try and convince the Trailblazers to fork over Lillard. But then again, that's just me. So we're going to have to wait and see what happens in the month of August when the NBA season is over. Now, I mentioned the Olympics before. The big story involving the Olympics has to do with the track star for Team USA, which is Sha'Carri Richardson. Sha'Carri Richardson is a gold medal favorite to win the 100 meters. Well, unfortunately, Sha'Carri Richardson has officially been banned from the Tokyo Olympics after testing positive for weed. Don't you think your career is worth a lot more that you have to sneak in a little bit of cannabis just to try and calm yourself down? By the same token, there's been a lot of legislation going on to try and make cannabis legal. So when you think about it, is Sha'Carri Richardson a victim here, or is she just someone who used bad judgment? Take it for what it's worth. Now, one other story in sports has to do with the big decision that's going on in the college ranks. And that is the fact that college athletes will now be able to make money off of their own likeness and image. One example of this is a gymnast at the University of Florida. Leah Clapper is her name. She's been blogging. She has a blog, which has become very popular. So popular that there were some well-known brands that wanted to market around her and market her, to be exact. But unfortunately, she had to turn it down because receiving that money would have violated NCAA rules. Well, the ruling has been made as of this past Thursday. So now, state laws in Florida, and I quote, "State laws in Florida and a handful of other states have taken effect, allowing college athletes to make money from their name, image, and likeness. The NCAA, under pressure to loosen its tight grip on athlete compensation, is adopting an interim policy allowing college athletes everywhere to do the same. The furious change also follows a unanimous Supreme Court decision in June that found the NCAA's strict limits on compensation violate U.S. antitrust law." Long story short, the NCAA is not allowed to operate the way they do anymore. And I think it's a landmark moment for a lot of college athletes. Now, if they can just expand this loophole a little bit, maybe this would keep the kids in college. And You may not know this, but apparently there's a new baseball team coming to Staten Island. A new minor league team. We don't know if it's going to be affiliated with one of the majors or if it's going to be independent. But apparently, it's going to take about $8 million to get the stadium back into playing shape. Well, that's that. Anyway, there's let's go back to baseball for a little bit. Unfortunately, there was a very disturbing story that came out of Los Angeles involving the Dodger pitcher Trevor Bauer. Trevor Bauer supposedly assaulted a woman very badly. And it got to the point where Major League Baseball actually went ahead and made the decision to let Bauer pitch over the weekend. I don't know about you, but the last time I checked, it was sacrilegious to hit a woman. Let me just say, if this were the NFL, you'd be seeing a quick suspension like that. But Major League Baseball, this just goes to show you that Major League Baseball continues to fall far behind the times. And it's gotten to the point where you might be seeing some women's groups picketing Dodger Stadium and protesting Bauer's spot on the team. I always was under the impression that the Dodgers were a classy organization, but for some reason, they seem to be washing their hands of this. Well, let me just... I can only shake my head at this because of the atrocity of this whole thing. It's gotten to the point where... maybe Major League Baseball just doesn't care. So I couldn't even begin to tell you. By the way, I want to say once again, thanks to Michael Stanton on the other side of the glass. I think this is his second or third time working the show here, and so far he's done a terrific job. And also, one more episode remains. One more until we get to that 700th. So we certainly hope that you'll join us. Certainly hope that you can have some fun with us. And certainly hope that you can watch our show. Now, well, I just saw that the Mets made a couple of moves. They already activated Marcus Stroman from the bereavement list. And condolences out to Marcus Stroman's family for... he lost his grandmother just recently, so we wanted to send condolences out to him. And also the Mets activated Brandon Nimmo off the injured list. Going back to the Yankees for a bit, Al Steinbrenner said that naturally this has been a disappointing season, but to my surprise, he absolved both the manager and the general manager of any blame. He put the blame on the players, which is true because the players do have to perform. But at the same time, shouldn't the manager be held accountable for putting this team together? I mean, after all, he was the one that made the Giancarlo Stanton trade, and he was the one that decided to make DJ LeMahieu a $90 million man. So when you think about it, the blame should be all over this franchise. It should be on the players for not playing well. It should be on the manager for not making the adjustments that he's supposed to. And it should be on the general manager for putting this team together. He definitely should be held to task for making the Giancarlo Stanton trade. And a couple of notes in baseball. Shohei Ohtani of the Angels is the American League's Player of the Week, and Kyle Schwarber of the Nationals is the National League's Player of the Week. And I mentioned before that both Marcus Stroman and Brandon Nimmo were activated off the injured list. And I mentioned before that the NCAA that had made or now is forced to allow their athletes to be paid for the use of their likeness and their image. Well, get this. Reggie Bush, who unfortunately lost his Heisman Trophy many years ago because he received a whole bunch of improper benefits, well, he might be able to get his Heisman Trophy back. Excuse me, folks. We just got excuse me, folks. We just got an update Sorry about that, folks. I mentioned before that there's a strong possibility that Staten Island might be getting a baseball team back, but that it was going to take $8 million in taxpayer money to get the stadium back into playing shape. Well, it's looking more and more like this team is going to be making its way to Staten Island after all. And I quote, "As New Yorkers voted in Tuesday's primary, New York City Economic Development Corporation approved the funds, which are part of the deal to lure a team from the quirky Atlantic League to Richmond County Bank Ballpark. Also on tap for the 7,171-seat ballpark, concerts, and other events. Negotiations are nearly complete. The goal was to bring an affordable baseball experience in 2022 to the stadium located near the St. George Terminal. Not much is known about the ball club, to be owned by an entity called Staten Island Entertainment LLC. It's clear taxpayers will be shelling out some big bucks long before the first cry of play ball. Some $6 million has been earmarked to replace the current seats and field, while another $2.355 million will go towards paying off past and future upkeep costs, including water, sewer, and gas bills. So basically, the Atlantic League is coming to Staten Island, which is not bad. I'm not sure if the taxpayers are going to be too happy about having to pay $8 million to refurbish the stadium. But there's just something about the minor league experience that seems real innocent, real fun, and real family-oriented, too. I went to a lot of Staten Island Yankee games in the past, and it was obvious that the atmosphere was called for a family affair. So hopefully we'll be able to enjoy a new baseball team here. Maybe there can be a bit of a rivalry with the Long Island Ducks or the Newark Bears. Who knows? For the record, the Atlantic League plays 60 home games a season, and you figure 60 road games, that makes 120 games for the year. That's not bad. The Atlantic League is 24 years old, and they plan to expand from 8 to 12 teams over the next few years. And in addition to the Long Island Ducks, they have teams in Pennsylvania, Maryland, and North Carolina as well. So hopefully this will be a good experience for the people of Staten Island, because losing the Yankees was a real sting to our borough. Well, you know that old saying, when you have lemons, make lemonade. Speaking of lemons, the Mets and the Yankees wound up finishing the Subway Series over the weekend. I don't know about you, but I always consider the Subway Series to be a lot of fun. I mean, even though both teams are in dire straits right now, it's fun because it involves the two New York squads. You could take the train to and from home, and it's good to see both teams square off against each other. Now, here's something that we haven't spoken about at all, and that's soccer's European Cup. And we just saw that Italy leads Belgium 2-1 in the 73rd minute, and also Switzerland and Spain squared off. They tied at 1, but Spain wound up winning 3-1 on penalty kicks. Now, as far as other things going on in the world of sports, it's July, which means only one thing. Not only is the All Star game about to take place in baseball, but it's also training camps in football. Speaking of the NFL, one guy is trying to make his way back into the NFL from major substance abuse problems, and that's Josh Gordon. Josh Gordon has already sent a letter applying for reinstatement, and he's hoping that he can join a team in time for training camp. He got suspended indefinitely for a second time this past January after violating the league's policy on drugs. And before that, got another suspension December 2019, also because of the drug policy. He violated it. This guy has been suspended 6 times in 8 years. Does he or does he not get the hint that he's just not wanted? I mean, it's gotten to the point where something needs to be told about this, to this guy, that he cannot make his way back to the NFL because he can't be trusted. Once a junkie, always a junkie. It's gotten to the point where maybe the NFL should strengthen their drug policies, not allow any reinstatement at all. Anyway, it's gotten to the point where something needs to be told or something needs to be done about this guy because he can't think that he's going to be coming back over and over again after being suspended 6 times. So that's enough about that. Anyway, well, I am so sorry, folks, that that I've been so silent. In the meantime, the going back to basketball, the Knicks might be getting a little bit of help from a newcomer that made his way to the team only this past April. His name is Norvell Pell. He was born in Antigua, lived in the island of St. Croix for a short time, and then lived in Southern California. And he's a 6 foot 10 inch forward whose path to the NBA actually bounced around a little bit. He played in Taiwan, he played in Lebanon, he played in Italy. He's now 28 years old, so the Knicks are probably his last shot at hooking up with an NBA team. He also played briefly for the Nets and the Kings this past season, and for the 76ers the previous season. He says he wants to play whatever role is given to him. You know, folks, I think that's pretty much going to do it for us. So I want to reiterate once again that our 700th episode is just 2 weeks away. And we certainly hope that you'll join us for that evening. We certainly hope that you will join us to make history. And we just hope that you'll join us to have some fun. I also want to say thanks to Chris King for doing a great job at the beginning of the program. And I also want to say thanks to Michael Stanton on the other side of the glass for doing such a great job as well. So that's going to do it for us, folks. Thanks to Michael. Thanks to Kenny, of course, even though he wasn't at work today. And thanks to you guys for watching at home as well. So for everyone here, I'm Jamie. We hope to see you next week. Good night, everyone.